Hi, I'm David Weintraub, the owner of Bodyworks DW. I wanted this to be a really easy program that was simple, fast, easy to do, and just enough to cover the whole body. I'm going to start with a seated hip external rotator stretch. So a lot of our lives are spent sitting, typing, looking at screens, and getting more and more crunched, and then lifting our back and trying to fight that, and eventually everything just gets really crunched in and tight. You basically want to take one ankle over a knee, and you're going to think about folding at the hip sockets here. So not curling, but actually folding in. And the first thing you'll notice as I start doing this stretch is I'm not holding it. I'm doing a style of stretching called activated isolated stretching, where you only hold the stretch for about a second and then release it. And you'll do sets of about 10 on each side. And there's a really good reason for this. Your bodies have something called the stretch reflex proprioceptor. It's designed to tell your brain whether or not your muscle is in danger of being torn. So anytime that you hold a stretch and it triggers that, and it's actually a lot easier to do than you think, it sends a signal to your brain that says, ooh, this is a little dangerous, this muscle might tear. Your brain says, oh, that's not a good idea, and it sends a signal back to tighten the muscle and protect it. So anything that you do holding a stretch for longer than 2 seconds is likely to trigger that and basically leave you without much benefit past that 2 seconds. I'm not hard bouncing, I'm very lightly going in and then letting it go. Next we're going to work on the side body. So imagine you're between two panes of glass and you're just going to curl sideways. So on the last one we wanted to do a fold as if you're folding a joint, an angle. On this one we want to do a curl. So you're going to curl your body sideways, and that allows you to get the stretch all along the curl and not just at one point. And you'll see that concept come up in some of these stretches. It's either going to be a focused point that you're trying to create an angle with, or it's going to be a curl along the whole edge of your body. Alright, so next we're going to do a rotator cuff stretch. Your rotator cuff is a set of 4 muscles that does this. To start this variation, you're just going to wrap your arms around. So you put one elbow on top of the other, and then wrap your hands like that. And what you're going to do is try to pull your arms apart. And you're going to use your arms to keep yourself from doing that. And the engagement of pulling like that is going to stretch the muscle. So I'm sort of pulling and pulsing 1 second each, and not just holding it. I know it doesn't look like I'm doing that much because nothing's really changing, but I am just sort of doing that. Now, let me get into a pec stretch. So your pecs are the big muscle that we think of from doing push-ups. Basically, I'm going to roll my shoulders back and down, clasp my fingers, and just lift my arms. Alright, I'm starting to build up a little heat because this is an active style stretching, so I'm actually going to take off this sweater. Now we're going to do the quad. So the quad is this muscle at the front of the thigh. This gets super tight from sitting. So basically I'm going to push my foot through my hand. So this is a PNF style where I'm firing the muscle that I'm stretching. So I'm going to push this in to my hand for the pulse, and I'm going to pulse 1 second each 10 times. we're going to do the adductors, which are the inner thigh muscles. We're going to spread wide, but not super duper duper wide, not as wide as possible. Lock our knees back and fold at the hips. So that gets more of the back side. Now we're going to do directly in the middle. So to do this, you're going to fold sideways. And so this is your greater trochanter. And on this one, I want you to think about folding at an angle, not curling. You should feel that up on the upper inner thigh. Now, so we did the back, sort of back on the inner line, and then we did the middle right along the pant seam. Now we're going to do the inner diagonal. We can, upper inner diagonal, we can turn like that, and turn. And you're just getting the very top adductors on the inside. Be very light with this one. We don't want to overdo it. Just getting some blood flow to those muscles that hardly ever move. So we did back, middle, front. We did the front and the quads already. Now we're going to do these little tiny muscles on the outside of the hip. So you can cross one leg over the other. The one that's in back is the side that you're stretching. You want to think about, again, creating a fulcrum, not a curl, right here, and you're going to push that out to the side. Depending on which angle you pick, you might get a little more forward on the stretch or backwards. And if you don't feel it that much, think about flattening the back foot into the floor, and that's going to increase it and target right there. And switching. Now we're going to do the lats. So the lats attach to the sacrum and all the way up to here, and then float up in a giant sheet and come across and attach right there. And if you think about that sheet, pulling on this attachment and pulling down, it's going to bring your arm bone down with it. So when you hear about lat pull downs, right, it's taking this bone, the humerus, and pulling it down in space. And that happens all the way down here. So that's a big part of low back pain, right? So it's a good thing we can stretch these. You're going to fold at the hips, bring the arms as far above you as you're comfortable with. And again, using that PNF style where I'm pulsing and tightening the muscle that I'm stretching, I'm actually going to try and push my arm through the chair like that, keeping the elbows locked. So pushing down. And that is going to fire right in there. And then I can use my body to just pull backwards and away from the chair a little tiny bit. Cool. All right, now I'm going to lower the chair a little bit, give myself a little bit easier time, because this is going to be my easy hamstring stretch. So using something low, like a chair, starting with the knee bent and squaring the hips. Basically what we can do is try to pull the chair towards us with the heel, or the couch. Couch is a really good thing to use for this. So I'm going to fire the muscle to do that. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to use my body to pull the knee straight. Sounds complicated, doesn't have to be that hard. I can kind of just do nice and easy. I don't have to even straighten all the way, but I'm going to feel that down here. Alright, so next, that was hamstring back here. So now we've gotten basically the whole leg all the way around the bone. The next thing I'm going to do is the psoas muscle, which is very deep underneath all the abs. It's basically a hip flexor and a postural muscle. And again, because it's a hip flexor, it gets super tight sitting all day. Basically, one knee up, one knee down, as square as possible. And I want you to tuck your tailbone really hard. The stretch is going to happen on the side that's down. And leaving your leg where it is, you're going to pull forward with your body using the other leg. But you really want to make sure that you're not pulling forward and leaving your tailbone out there, because that's just not going to stretch at all. So this stays tucked and moving forward. Other knee. So again, tucking. This presses down as my whole body tries to use my front leg to shift forward while keeping my hips square, not floating out. Next stretch, we've got two more in the series. It's going to be for calves, basic. And normally I would do this with a yoga block. I'm going to use these books because not everybody has a yoga block. So you can use those to give a little bit of height. For me, that means I can step forward. If I had a yoga block, I might be more back here. Keeping my knee locked, I'm just going to lean in and try to fold at the ankle. And you won't see much change there on some of you. Some of you are very flexible. I'm not in the ankle. Good. All right. Last but not least, front of the neck. Super important. It's going to feel really good. I want you to think about taking your hands and pressing them lightly down on your sternum and your chest. That's just to keep those muscles and shoulders from rising up when you lift your head. So this is pulling down while that goes up. So that's straight up the middle. Now we're going to turn 45 degrees and do the same thing. And then the other way. And lastly, side to side.